Welcome back to Smell the Roses, where we don't just watch the mess, baby, we study it. So today I did things a little differently. I wrote this down. Okay. I wrote some of this down. Now, let me say this right at the top of this video. This is commentary. This is an opinion. This is me looking at a pattern that shows up over and over again in relationships, in celebrity culture, and in real life. So let's discuss it like grown folks. Because one thing about some women, they do not want peace. They do not want partnership. They do not want equal. They want a man they can manage. They want a man who needs guidance, needs saving, needs structure, needs help, needs a plan, needs supervision, needs emotional rehab, needs budgeting, needs prayer, needs a haircut, needs deodorant, needs a calendar invite, needs a spiritual breakthrough, needs a mother, a manager, and a motivational speaker. That is not a boyfriend. That is a nonprofit organization. And some women love that role because it lets them feel powerful. It lets them feel necessary. It lets them feel like the star, the anchor, the stable one, the wise one, the one with the answers. But here's the problem. The minute that man gets his life together, the minute he becomes confident, the minute he becomes successful, the minute he stops looking at her like she hung the moon and the stars standing on his own 2 feet, now all of a sudden the relationship has changed. Now he's different. Now he's distant. Now he is too busy. Now he is too full of himself. Now there's a disconnect. Girl, no. Maybe the disconnect is that you never wanted an equal to begin with. Maybe what you wanted was a permanent patient. Maybe what you wanted was a man-shaped emergency. Because some people do not know how to function in relationships where both people are whole. So let's go there. Tia, some women build their entire romantic identity around being the strong one. I'm the one who held him down. I'm the one who believed in him. I'm the one who helped him grow. I'm the one who taught him how to love. I'm the one who made him into the man he is today. Baby, sit down, because sometimes what that really means is I need to be central. I need to be above, and I need to feel bigger than the person I'm with. That is why stable men often do not excite women like this for very long. A stable man is harder to control. A stable man has options. A stable man has confidence. A stable man can say no. A stable man does not need to be mothered. A stable man is not impressed just because you're organized and have a loud mouth. And for some reason, this is deeply unsettling, because what is her role when she cannot rescue him? What is her identity when she cannot correct him? What is her purpose when she cannot hover over him like the assistant principal of his life? See, we glamorize this too much. We call it nurturing. We call it loyalty. We call it riding for your man. We call it being down. We call it helping him build. And sometimes, yes, that is exactly what that is. But other times, in TiaMowry's situation, it is ego in a cardigan. It is control wearing lip gloss. It is superiority with a soft voice. It is a power trip dressed up like devotion. Because let's be very honest. A lot of folks say they want love, but what they really want is leverage. They want to be the one who knows more, the one who earns more, the one who decides more, the one who sacrifices more, the one who can always say, after all I did for you. Because, see, there it is. That line right there tells you the whole story. After all I did for you. That is not love talking. That is investment portfolio language. That is ownership language. That is somebody mad their emotional stock is not paying dividends. Healthy love does not keep receipts like that. It just doesn't. Healthy love is not built on one person always being up here and the other always being down there. Healthy love is not a permanent teacher student dynamic. You feel me, Tia? Healthy love is not one person forever mentoring the other through adulthood. And yes, let's talk about the teacher energy in relationships in general, because, baby, that dynamic is a red flag all by itself. When somebody is always drawn to situations where they get to instruct, correct, guide, mold, shape, rescue, and show somebody the way, you have to ask yourself, do you want intimacy or do you want authority? Because those are not the same thing. A lot of people are not in love with the man, they are in love with being needed by the man. That is why they panic when he evolves, Corey Hardrick, for example. That is why they get funny when he starts winning, TiaMowry. That is why they start feeling unseen the second he is no longer kneeling at the altar of their labor, because now he is not a reflection of her usefulness. Now he is his own person. Now he has a voice. Now he has preferences. Now he has standards. Now he is not just grateful, he is discerning. And that is where the trouble starts. See? Because some women, like Tia, do not actually want a masculine, grounded, fully formed man. They want the idea of one with the dependency setting still turned on. They want a man who looks grown but functions like a Build-A-Boyfriend kit. Some assembly required, instructions included, batteries not supplied, backbone sold separately. And as long as he stays in progress mode, she feels secure. But the minute he arrives, the minute other people start to respect him, the minute he becomes desirable on his own, the minute he is no longer orbiting for her approval, now she is irritated. Now she is confused. Now she is finding herself. Now she needs some space. Now she's talking about growth and alignment and seasons and journeys and graduations and all of the other vocabulary words used when the truth is ugly. And the ugly truth is just simple. She liked him more when he was below her. That is a nasty conversation, but it is a real one. And before anyone starts throwing chairs, let me say this. This is not just a woman problem. Men do this too. Plenty of men pick fixer-upper women because it gives them power. Plenty of men like being the savior. Plenty of men like being the provider to someone who can never challenge them. But today we are talking about this version of it. The woman who has mistaken control for chemistry, the woman who has mistaken chaos for depth, The woman who thinks love is only real if she is suffering, sacrificing, coaching, dragging, carrying, explaining, and emotionally babysitting a grown man. That woman is tired. She is always tired and somehow still dating the same type in a new outfit and hairstyle. Every man is misunderstood. Every man is going through something. Every man needs support. Every man has potential. Baby, potential has ruined more women than betrayal ever did. Potential is the coupon code of bad relationships. It keeps convincing people they are getting more than what is actually in the cart. And women who are addicted to potential often call themselves loyal when they are really just attached to the struggle, because struggle makes them feel important. A peaceful relationship feels boring to them. A reciprocal relationship feels flat to them. A mature man feels intimidating to them. A successful man feels harder to outshine. A secure man leaves no room for performance. That is the real issue with Tia, because some women need the performance. They need to be the saint. They need to be the burden barrier. They need to be the wise woman who held him together with sage, spreadsheets, and side eyes. And then when it falls apart, they act shocked. No, sister, you did not just pick wrong. You picked familiar. That is different. You picked what let you feel powerful. You picked what let you avoid vulnerability. You picked what let you stay in charge. You picked what led you to be needed without ever having to be truly known. Because that is another thing nobody wants to talk about. Sometimes rescuing people is a way to avoid intimacy. Yes, I said it, because real intimacy requires mutuality. A real intimacy requires softness. Real intimacy requires letting somebody see your flaws too. And real intimacy requires not always being the competent one. Intimacy requires equality, and equality feels risky to people who are used to having power. That is why they keep choosing lopsided situations. That is why they always end up pouring into somebody. That is why the relationship always somehow becomes a full-time service position. It is safer to be the rescuer than to be the partner, because the rescuer stays on top. The rescuer stays admired. The rescuer is always needed. They don't need, they're always the one that's needed. The rescuer is the one who stays in control of the emotional weather. But the partner has to share that role. Now, Tia, unfortunately for you, I'm just going to get messier right here. Some people say they left a relationship because they had outgrown it. But what they really mean is they could no longer dominate it. Sometimes what bothers them is not that the man changed, is that the power balance changed. Sometimes his success exposes that her value was never just being loved. It was being one above him. And once she cannot feel bigger than him, she starts feeling smaller than him. So she runs towards situations where she can become large again, back to mentoring, back to guiding, back to directing, back to rescuing, back to being the forearm of somebody's emotional construction site. Girl, put down the hard hat. At some point, you have to admit you are not unlucky in love. You are loyal to a role. And that role is Captain Save a Grown Man. Pure and simple. That is your real soulmate. Not peace, not softness, not joy, not even mutual respect, baby girl. The role. The applause that comes from people saying, wow, you really held him down, girl. The ego boost that comes from being essential. The identity of being the one who can survive anything. The secret thrill of being the woman behind the man, especially when the man is unstable enough to make you feel superior. That here is the gag, people. A woman who has to always be the man in the relationship usually is not strong in the way that she thinks she is. No, Tia. A lot of that is just fear. Fear of dependence, fear of surrender, fear of partnership, fear of not being in charge, fear of choosing someone who can challenge you, leave you, outgrow you, or simply just not worship your ass. So instead, you choose men that you can tower over and then call yourself exhausted. That is not strength. That is emotional micromanagement. And yes, I know that stings a little, right? But some people need the sting because too many women are out here confusing I can handle a lot with I should keep signing up for nonsense. Really? Your daughter's teacher, allegedly? Girl, no. You being able to survive dysfunction is not proof that dysfunction is your destiny. You being resourceful does not mean broken men are your assignment. You being nurturing does not mean every romance needs to come with a case file. You are not a rehabilitation center, or are you? You are not a halfway house with lace fronts. You are not an emotional support forklift for underdeveloped men. And if every love story somehow turns into a rescue story, maybe the common denominator is not the men you choose. Maybe it's your appetite. Because appetites tell the truth when words do not. Some people say they want stable, but they crave unstable. They say they want peace, but they crave intensity. They say they want a provider, but they crave someone they can position as less than them. They say they want masculinity, but only the kind they can supervise. That is why so many people are in relationships where they are forever disappointed. They are not choosing from alignment. They are choosing from their freaking egos. An ego will have you in full glam, giving TED Talks about love while privately repeating the same miserable cycle in higher definition. We see you, girl. That is the part that nobody likes to hear. We see you. Because it is easier to say men are trash. It is easier to say he changed. It is easier to say I just have bad luck. No, sometimes you have a bad pattern, Tia. And patterns do not break because you change faces. Patterns break when you tell yourself the truth. Do you want love or do you want authority? Do you want a partner or a dependent? Do you want peace or do you want the ego boost of being the most competent person in the room every time? Every conversation, every crisis, every relationship. Because, baby, if you only know how to love from the top, you do not know how to love. You know how to manage. And management is not marriage. Management is not intimacy. Management is not respect, and management is not desire. It is labor, it is control, it is performance, and eventually it collapses under the weight of its own imbalance. So for anybody watching this video who sees themselves in this pattern, here is the rose and the thorn. the rose. You do not have to keep doing this, the thorn. You might have to admit that some of your romantic choices were never about love at all. They were about your identity. And when your identity depends on being needed, you will always resent people once they stop needing you. That is why some relationships die the moment one person becomes whole, not because love failed, because the role failed. And once the role is gone, there is nothing left but two people staring at each other, realizing one of them wanted a partner and the other one wanted a project. And that shit hurts. And that, my dear, is the real tragedy in all of this, because you have children with Corey. Because a lot of people are not heartbroken, they are unemployed. Their favorite job just ended, and the job was rescuing men. That is the tea. Some people are not heartbroken. They are just upset their favorite role disappeared and that role was being needed. Now, if you enjoyed this conversation, do not just sit silent like you were not entertained. Like the video, share it, subscribe to Smell the Roses, and hit that notification bell so you stay right here where the roses are blooming and the commentary is sharp. And if you want to support Smell the Roses directly, go ahead and become a channel member. That is one of the best ways to support the platform, help me grow, and keep this kind of content coming. Sound off in the comments for me, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, rosebuds, don't just watch the chaos, smell the roses.